Hello everyone and welcome to Big Rock Moto. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I really appreciate that. Just two favors as we're starting out. Please subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and please use my affiliate links whenever you're shopping for parts and gear. For 2025, Honda have made key improvements in 6 different areas to their very practical and very popular NC750X DCT. Now, I did a comprehensive in-depth review of the NC750X about a year or two ago, and I will link that below. This video, we're going to go over the changes for the new bike, but we're not going to go super in-depth on the motorcycle. So if that's what you're looking for, I will link that other review here below. So here's what we're going to do today. We'll briefly cover the 6 key updates they've made to the bike for 2025. Then I'll cover the specs and give you a walk around of the basic features of the bike. Then we'll go for a ride, show you how it is to ride, and then we'll come back here and end with some final thoughts. All right, so I mentioned there's 6 key areas where Honda have updated the NC750X for 2025. So number 1 is they've changed the bodywork and they've changed the styling. So you may like it, you may not like it. I think it is a nice little refresh. It looks maybe a little bit more modern or a little bit better. So I think that's fine, but it's not a huge change, probably not going to make a huge difference. The second change that they've done is they've updated the way that the dual clutch transmission or the DCT functions. So they've improved the function of the DCT with smoother, more natural shifts and better initial takeoff feel. So when you initially take off with the DCT from a stop and it's sort of feeding in the power, it's now more progressive and more natural. So they've improved the DCT functionality. The third thing they've done is they've given us a new headlight, and they claim it has significantly more light output than the outgoing bike. Now, I will give you as a warning that I think most motorcycles, they don't have very good light output no matter what the manufacturers say. And if you're going to ride a lot at night, you probably need to consider adding extra lighting. So the fourth thing that they've done is Honda have, I think this maybe is the best change, they've replaced the outgoing LCD instrument cluster or instrument panel with this brand new 5-inch full color TFT display. You can also see this display on the new Transalp or the updated Transalp and on the new Honda Hornet. So it's much easier to read, it's brighter, it's crisper, it has more contrast, it's easy to change the settings. They've also added their RoadSync app connectivity, which means you can get Bluetooth connectivity for phone calls and things like that. You can also get turn-by-turn directions up there on the screen. But it is not Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. If you were wondering about that, they have not added that here to this bike. The fifth change they've done is a mechanical change, and I think it's a big improvement, is they've upgraded the front braking system. So our rear braking system stays the same versus 2024, but on the front brakes, they've replaced the single 320 millimeter disc with a dual disc setup. So now you've got twin 296 millimeter discs, and you've got 2 piston calipers on each of those discs. So we've gone from a single disc with 2 pistons, now we've got dual discs, and we've got a total of 4 pistons of stopping power. I like that because I'm a big believer in having strong brakes, especially if you're riding with luggage or a passenger, and that's a really nice improvement there. The 6th upgrade they've done is they've changed the wheels on the bike. So they're all new wheels, and they are significantly lighter by 4 pounds or 1.8 kilograms. When you reduce the weight of the wheels, it's the best performance improvement you can do to the motorcycle by far. It's the absolute best thing you can do because the less unsprung weight in the wheels means that your motorcycle is going to handle better, be more agile, turn into corners better. It's going to stop better. It's going to accelerate better. It's also going to ride better because you have less unsprung weight working against the suspension. So lighter weight wheels, I am like a 2 huge thumbs up for that. Huge thanks to Law Tigers and their nationwide network of motorcycle lawyers for sponsoring today's video. The biggest mistake you can make if you're in a motorcycle accident is to not contact an attorney. Insurance companies are not on your side, and you'll need a lawyer to make sure you are treated fairly. To avoid getting a bare minimum insurance settlement, you'll need an attorney to fight for you. Law Tigers only gets paid if you do. There is zero upfront cost. Again, remember, it is important that you call an attorney before contacting your insurance company. Law Tigers has been in business for over 20 years, and they support our riding community. Their contact information will be below. Thanks again to Law Tigers for sponsoring Big Rock Moto and sponsoring today's video. All right, let's take a tour and talk about the features of this bike. I'm not going to go into tremendous detail because I did the in-depth review on last year's model not too long ago. So the MSRP for 2025 is $9,499 US. The wet weight of the bike fully fueled up is 497 pounds or 225 kilograms. The engine in the bike, you can see down here, is a 745cc parallel twin. But very uniquely for this motorcycle, it's kind of laying down here low in the chassis. That gives the bike a very low center of gravity, a very low weight balance. So the bike feels much lighter than the listed weight would specify, and it makes it just an extremely practical design that makes it easier to use in real life. The horsepower and torque is 58 horsepower and 51 foot-pounds of torque, or 69 Newton meters. Fuel capacity, the fuel's actually under the seat because you've got this large storage area here, which I'll show you in a minute. The fuel capacity is 3.7 gallons or 14 liters. However, keep in mind this motorcycle gets exceptional fuel economy, and I'll put some estimates of that below. So the fuel range is more than you would think for having that amount of gas. The seat height on this bike is very reasonable and good for newer or shorter riders. It's 31.6 inches or 802 millimeters. Wheel sizes on this bike, you have a 17-inch rear wheel and a 17-inch front wheel. Ground clearance is very limited, and the suspension travel is also pretty limited and is set up as a street bike with 4.7 inches or 120 millimeters of suspension travel. So if you look at the low-hanging engine and exhaust, the limited ground clearance and limited suspension travel, you can tell that Honda did not intend this motorcycle to be used off-road. While you can take it on graded dirt roads and gravel roads, you really wouldn't want to do anything more beyond that. This storage area here is quite tremendous and very unique on a motorcycle. So you open it up here and you can see the storage inside here. Oops, I forgot my other camera in here. This is the camera I use for the studio shots and the B-roll. Let me put that down really quick. You can see just how big and deep this is. I mean, how far I can reach my arm down in here. You could fit a small dog, a cat, a small child, a koala bear, many other different zoo animals you could fit inside here. You could fit in some Costco packages of food. Who knows what you want to fit in here. Oops, let me throw the helmet in here. So I want to show you that you can put a helmet in the storage container here, and it will close and lock. As you can see, this is a large size adult regular street helmet, and it absolutely fits in here, no problem at all. Of course, it's got a nice waterproof gasket, and it locks closed, and it's just so well integrated into the design. It's just what an amazing feature, and they're able to do that because of the interesting packaging of this bike, with the engine sitting way down there, the fuel tank kind of under here, and then they're able to use the space for the storage. All right, taking a look at the control center of the bike here, you do have, I want to point out, the parking brake, which to activate you pull like that, and then to release it you depress this little button, and then you can release the parking brake like that. They've given us new switchgear. This is backlit, this button, this four-way joystick here, which you can go in and control different aspects of your TFT display, which I'm not going to get into all that right now. And of course, you've got the riding modes and all those sorts of things. Got your DCT shifter over here, key area, and then you've got the TFT dash, which is new. It's not huge, but it is bright, contrasty, sharp, clear, easy to read, and very easy to navigate, and I think is a huge improvement over the LCD we saw on the old model. I also want to point out that the windshield is just slightly different for 2025, and you do have this little duct or hole here which reduces the buffeting a little bit. All right, riding the updated 2025 NC750X. If you're familiar with the old bike, it really feels very similar to that. I mean, it's not dramatically different in any way. Let's talk about the mechanical changes they did. So the dual clutch transmission improvements, without riding the old bike back to back, I couldn't tell you how much better it is, but it is better. I can recall the old one how it rode, and this one how it shifts and rides in the different modes, and this is better for sure, but it's not a groundbreaking, you know, earth-shattering difference in terms of the DCT. But I will tell you, this one works flawlessly. The shifts are almost imperceptible, and then you can take manual control with the toggle shifters whenever you want. You've got the different ride modes as well, which is controlled over here. So if I go into like sport mode, I've got user modes, I've got sport modes. If I go into sport mode, oops, I didn't take it there. Let's go into sport mode. Come on. Okay, sport mode, there we go. Holds on to gears differently in a different mode, so that works great. What other mechanical changes do you have? You know, the windshield's a little different, that works a little better, although it's still quite a bit of wind noise, and I would like to see an adjustable or a larger windshield. The handling, is the handling better? I mean, it's probably a little bit better because the wheels are lighter, but again, without riding the old bike back to back, I couldn't really tell you. But I'll tell you this, it handles extremely well. It feels super responsive and agile. It's actually extremely fun to ride, more fun than you would think. It doesn't make a ton of power output from this engine, but it has good torque and it has good linear power. But the handling is pretty superb on this bike. The brakes initially feel really, really good. And having the twin disc is a really, really nice improvement. The other riding improvement you get is you get this great TFT, which is a tremendous improvement from the LCD that we had that kind of washed out in the sun on the previous model. So Honda's making this consistent across a lot of their bikes that you see coming out now, and that's a good thing. It's not the world's most amazing TFT, but for these bikes that are at these lower price points, this is a really good display, and the control interface works really, really well. So I'm super, super happy with that. Yeah, you see the engine only redlines at 7,000 RPM. It's more of a tractor-like low revving engine with a lot of grunt, but it's just the way it's designed. It's built for longevity and efficiency, and you know, just to be a workhorse. It's not designed for super high performance. All right, let's come to a stop here. Let's do our 0 to 70 miles per hour to 0 acceleration and braking test. I'll leave it in automatic. I'm going to have it in sport mode here to give us a little bit sportier shifting. Let's see how we go. Full power. $60, $70. Oops, got into a little bit of gravel there in the shoulder, so I had to let off a tiny bit, but the brakes feel very nice. They feel much stronger than I remember the outgoing bike, and that would make a lot of sense since you have so much more brake disc there now. I noticed that even in sport mode, the engine, or the DCT I should say, will shift to just a little bit shy of redline. That could be because the max power output's already passed at that point, but it does shift a little bit shy of redline. Now in standard mode, let's see where it would shift in standard mode. It's about the same, honestly. At full throttle, I guess that would make sense. At full throttle in any mode, it seems to still shift at 6,500 RPM, which is fine. But you do have some differences as well in the traction control and other things like that, and the throttle, the feeling of the throttle response as you go through the different ride modes, which is nice to have.
All right, so here are my final thoughts on the updated 2025 Honda NC750X DCT. With a smooth shifting and super easy to use DCT or dual clutch transmission, the amazing integrated storage compartment, the excellent fuel economy, the excellent comfort, and Honda's already known reliability and super strong dealer network, I think this bike will continue to be a huge sales success for Honda, making a lot of riders very, very happy. And especially now that they've done these improvements for 2025, I think it'll keep the sales going very, very strong. There are only two things about this bike that I can criticize. One is that I think it's very, very strange that this bike does not have cruise control. based on what this motorcycle is designed to do, the kinds of riding you're going to do with it, I find it very frustrating that Honda has chosen to not include cruise control. It's maybe because they want you to upsell you to the NT 1100 or an Africa Twin or something with the cruise control, but riders are asking for it, and I really think they need to respond by adding that. The only other change I would make, and it's a smaller thing, is I wish for an adjustable windshield. I'd really like to be able to move the windshield up and down to give myself some differing degrees of wind protection. Maybe that's not as big of a deal, and I think the cruise control is a bigger deal, but those are the only two things that stood out to me that I don't really like about this bike. Other than that, I think this is an amazing motorcycle, and I still think it's the most practical motorcycle that you can buy today in 2025. All right, well, I think that about wraps up the video for the updates on the 2025 NC750X. If I've missed things, if you have questions or comments, please put that down below. Thank you so much for watching. Ride safe, and I will see you out there.